Hi, in today's video I'm going to show you how I set up my new watercolor mixing palette. I got quite a few new watercolor tubes around Christmas last year, and I still had an empty 18-pan watercolor palette lying around, which for the longest time I wanted to use but could never decide on which colors to put into it. So now I finally decided on these colors or pigments, which for my personal use I consider the ultimate mixing palette. So the colors in this palette are lemon yellow, which is a cool yellow, cadmium yellow light, a neutral yellow, Hansa yellow deep, warm yellow, transparent orange, Connect red and coral, cadmium red light, which is a warm red, ruby red deep, Connectrodone rose, which is a cool red, ultramarine finest, which is a warm blue, delft blue, phthalo sapphire blue, cool blue, cerulean blue chromium, a light granulating blue, phthalo green for mixing vibrant greens, yellow ochre, which I use for landscape painting and mixing skin tones, English Venetian red, and finally Mars brown. From left to right I used yellows, reds, blues, greens, and what I call some special pigments. After filling the pans of the palette, I quickly swatched the colors on my sketchbook where I first conceptualized the palette for reference. My first custom watercolor palette started out as a split primary palette. According to color theory, you can mix every color with a CMY color model. So cyan, magenta, and yellow, which are the primary colors, and utilizing that system, you can quote-unquote split each of the primary colors into their warm and cool counterpart. So a cool yellow and a warm yellow, a warm red and a cool red or pink, a warm blue and a cool blue. A cool yellow and a cool blue mix into vibrant greens. A warm blue and a cool red or pink mix into vibrant purples. And a warm red and a warm yellow mix into clean and clear oranges. I used only single pigment colors for this mixing palette, as the fewer pigments are in the mix, the cleaner and clearer it is. Using a lot of multi-pigment colors will result in muddy mixes. Here you can see the first mixing palette I set up in 2020 and I've been using so far. I could mix a lot of colors with this, but I wanted to add a few other pigments to get a broader variety. And lastly, let's swatch and mix the colors on this palette. I have one orange pigment on my palette, transparent orange, PO71, which I added for mixing browns, greys and darker hues. By mixing a warm yellow, like Hansa Yellow Deep, PY65, with a warm red like Cadmium Red, PR108, we get a very vibrant orange. I also added PY35 Cadmium Yellow Light to the palette because it is close to the primary yellow in the CMY model, and also because it is slightly opaque, so the mixes with that pigment will also be opaque, as can be seen here that the mixed orange is slightly opaque. For purples and violets, I mainly use PV19, a cool red or pink, which is close to primary magenta, and mix it with the different blues on this palette. I also added Connectrodon Coral, PR209, on this palette for mixing skin tones, but as it is a cool red, it can also be mixed with blues to get purples and violets. Now for greens, we have many different options. Using a cool yellow like PY3 and mixing it with a cool blue like PB15 Phthalo Blue, we get a very vibrant green. Mixing yellow with phthalo green also yields very vibrant, almost neon-like greens. Using warmer blues will get us more muted greens. Using the aforementioned slightly opaque PY35 will yield slightly opaque green mixes as well. And finally, using a warm or neutral yellow and blue pigments will result in olive tones, in some cases even almost brown. As I paint a lot of watercolor portraits, it was important to me that I could mix skin tones easily with this palette. My favorite mix that I use all the time is Connectrodon Coral PR209 and Hansa Yellow Deep PY65, and mixing in ultramarine PB29 to get different undertones. I can also mix various browns and grey tones with this palette. There are many famous mixes like Jane's Grey, but my favorite combination to get brown, grey or black is PO71 and PB60. I'm really pleased with the setup of this palette and I will be using it a lot for my paintings. I still have 2 empty pans, so I look forward to adding 2 new colors to complement this palette in the future.